All right, guys, we're going to read our next poem called My Shadow, and it's by Robert Louis Stevenson. And he is the author of other famous works. Treasure Island and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are stories you may have heard of. But we're going to read this poem today, and it's organized into 4 stanzas, like the other poems have been. Remember, stanzas are the groupings of sentence or the groupings of lines in a poem. In a regular story, which you learned in Brain Pop, is called prose writing. That's just your typical writing. We would call it a paragraph. So I want you to see what you notice as I read this poem. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me. And what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me from the heels up to the head. And I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow. Not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller, like an Indian ball. And he sometimes gets so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. I'd think it a shame to stick to Mama as the shadow sticks to me. One morning very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant sleepyhead, had stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in bed. Now, we did some science work at school before the year changed to virtual with our shadows, and we know why shadows change. And if you think about it, Robert, who wrote this poem, could be the one speaking. He does say I. He probably knows why shadows change too, but he chose to write about his shadow in a funnier way. So one of the things that I wanted to say is this right here, stanza D. Isn't it interesting to think that he says one morning he goes out, but his shadow stayed in bed, which we know shadows don't actually stay in bed. But I want you to think about, why would a shadow not be with him? Think about that. That might be one of the questions that you help me answer when you think about this poem today.